Chapter 261. Image Breaking, Iconoclasm 1. Some time later, after my children had completed their final evolution, the dream demon race is experiencing an evolution. The mermaid race is experiencing an evolution. The snail race is experiencing an evolution. Changes also began to happen to the other races. The goblin race wasn't the only race that could evolve. The children of the soil were just the first to open fire. The races who were also able to evolve began spewing aura one after the other. Pot. In an instant, the sky became rainbow-colored.
Oh.
There were hundreds of thousands of people surrounding the energy dragon that dwells in the deep sea. They sat in the lotus position on the monster's limbs and even its claws, all releasing aura at the same time. The entire area was bright and colorful, as if it was wrapped in a rainbow. The existence of the energy dragon that dwells in the deep sea blurs. The light was also a candle that was using the giant monster as a wick. The energy dragon that dwells in the deep sea can no longer wake up from its sleep. The existence of the energy dragon that dwells in the deep sea blurs. It's over. I narrowed my eyes as I looked at the hologram. The energy dragon's majestic body was fast asleep. It was a phenomenon I had already witnessed before when I found the Devil King of Fall Rain falling. Nevertheless, it's much calmer than back then. The energy dragon didn't resist. No, it couldn't. Because the dream demon race had trapped the energy dragon in the dream world. That giant turtle probably didn't feel any pain or despair. The existence of the energy dragon that dwells in the deep sea blurs. The energy dragon that dwells in the deep sea can no longer maintain its authority. Commencing Great Adjustment. Removing the title Energy Dragon that dwells in the deep sea. A good death. Finally, the monster's body disintegrated. The constellation, which was said to have created this continent by itself, was devoured by the children it gave birth to. A fair ending. The Black Dragon Master opened her mouth. As we watched our children evolve, Anastasia had become lost for words for a while, but now it seemed that she had regained her composure. Even though the continent is rich in aura because of the energy dragon, so all 8 races owe them, I can't feel sorry for them. Well-deserved punishment. Anastasia calmly assessed the monster's death. It happened because he tried to kill own children. How can a being who bears their fangs at their children be a creator and parent? From the moment they bared their fangs, they were a beast. So they will fight each other, kill each other, and only the strong one will survive. And our children are strong. That's right. It's all thanks to our children. Looking at each other, Anastasia and I smiled. Not only the two of us, but my other colleagues also had bright expressions. They looked as happy as if we had cleared the stage ourselves, or maybe even more than that. The atmosphere was heartwarming. Well, all of the races did well, I said smilingly. If we had to pick the best among them, wouldn't it be the goblins? Huh? Anastasia frowned. What are you talking about? If the dream demons hadn't put the energy dragon to sleep, they wouldn't have been able to clear the stage in the first place. The vampires who brought the dream demons should be considered to have made the greatest contribution. If you think about it, the goblins just stole the delicious scene. That makes sense, but without the architecture of the snails, the hundreds of thousands of people would not have been able to climb onto the energy dragon's body every day. Ahaha, the heretic questioner laughed. The key point of this operation is the aura. Considering how important it was to have as many people as possible, the snails made an excellent contribution in bringing the operation to fruition. Ho! You all know nothing. What do you do with hundreds of thousands of people? The Count licked her cat paw with her cat tongue. In order for this to work, they all needed to be moved quickly by boat, have food to eat while moving, and have space to live after moving. Needless to say, the continent's capital and logistics are carried by the elves. Understand? Objectively speaking, in fact, the hidden contribution of the elves is the greatest. Actually, all the ships carrying the logistics are pulled by the mermaids. I mean, if we're talking about objective facts, that is also an objective fact. Huh? Did these people really think their children were the best? No. Obviously, the goblins are the best. That is the case even if your eyes are covered in bean pods. Asterisk, how could you side with your children even when you know this is true? Asterisk, the literal translation of the Korean expression is a bean pod covering the eyes. This phrase refers to being so madly in love to the point of not seeing or choosing to ignore all of their crush's flaws, as if something, in this case a bean pod, is covering their eyes. Wait. This atmosphere was no joke. As if the warm atmosphere a moment ago was a lie, the dropout waiting room suddenly became cold. Really? Did they really believe that their children played the biggest role? Wasn't that ridiculous, almost to the level of cognitive dissonance? No matter how well it was going for the goblins, wasn't this just ugly jealousy, envy, and very clingy animosity? Dilling. The Death King develops negative feelings towards his companions. At this time, they didn't yet know. Their camaraderie and friendship, which seemed like it would stay strong forever, would be ruined by their children. What are you doing, lady? Message game. The lady who walks through the mirage cut in between us. Did you know? Actually, every message, explanation, and status that is sent to you is all manually typed by one person. Who? Anyway, you have cleared the 38th floor. Congratulations! Babababam, the lady mimicked the celebratory firework sound with her mouth. In fact, the worlds in the stages you attacked vary. The 1st to the 10th floors are tutorials, so they are practically the same, but the 11th to 31st floors are completely different. There are more worlds than stars in the sky, which means there are countless stages for your ascendants asterisk to play on. Asterisk, those ascending/climbing to heaven. Heg. Anastasia and my other colleagues turned their attention to the lady's words. So the fact that the worlds in each stage appear different, does that mean that there are other worlds with towers besides ours? But it's rare for people from other worlds to run into each other before the 49th floor. Beginner consideration? Something like that. From the 50th floor, you will be competing with ascendants from every world. My colleagues looked excited. This was something that I had known or guessed for a long time, but they acted as if they had never heard of it before. No. I suddenly realized. This probably really is their first time hearing about it. My colleagues were different from me. I had already known that hunters from other worlds existed thanks to Bae-Hurayong. After all, Bae-Hurayong was a legendary figure who had managed to reach the 99th floor in another world. However, except for the Sword Saint, no one else should know. I, who had met the Tower Master and dug out the truth about the tower, was a unique case. Most people didn't want to know, and had no way to know. As I was in the midst of feeling the gap of information once again, the lady who walks through the mirage kept chattering. But from the 31st to the 49th floor, it is mostly the same. A worldwide commonality, no, should I say universal commonality asterisk? Asterisk, the former being common around a world, the latter being common around every world. This was information that I too was hearing for the first time. In the end, it is a matter of how you treat the stages. Some people choose the easy way, and some are willing to take the hard way. it allows you to experience what you will do when you encounter races from other worlds in preparation for being mixed with beings from other worlds on the 50th floor. The lady smiled brightly. And now it's time to pay the price for that experience. Price. Because one day, when a child grows up, they will realize the true faces of their parents. Just as my colleagues were about to ask what that meant. Chain layers in progress. The attackers will be sent directly to the 39th floor. The 39th floor quest will be displayed. Characters floated before our eyes. Plus. Iconoclasm. Difficulty, undetermined. Mission objective, you have helped your race. Your chosen race has overcome many challenges. Whether it be the ferocity of nature, the different races living in the same world, the unidentified plague encountered on the new continent, or the being who created the continent, all served as a challenge. Now, it is your turn to be the final test. Until now, you have been a god who reigned over the race. But you are not a god. You have to work to make a living, eat, smile or be angry. Like that race, you are also human. Please choose. Would you let your race know that you are human? Or will you hide the truth forever and call the race your servants? However, if you hide the truth, you will no longer be able to climb the tower. Plus. Right. I nodded slowly. This is the quest. The reason our tower came to a standstill before I regressed. The reason why the Flame Emperor, who had been attacking the stage with a wave of force, struggled after reaching the 40th floor. It wasn't a monster or a constellation, but the moment that history, he himself, had written, became the enemy. We are not gods. We were just the same as those other races. Now, it was time for those children to know that. 2. For a long time. I had been preparing for the 39th floor for a long time. To put it simply, Kekerker is our bad friend. I constantly emphasized to my children that I was not a god, but that I was just a parent, or to be more precise, that I was nothing more than a friend. The Apostle Gork made a request to us even upon death. Kekerker is not our god. Instead, he is a friend who wants to help us. But because he has a dirty mouth and a foul temper, he's not a friend you should keep close. Perhaps it might have been more convenient to pretend to be a real god. After all, I protected the goblins from the lava that flowed from the volcano. I helped them escape from the Rime Empire's salt mines. Taught them how to make tattoos, write letters, and showed them the path to being reborn as the conquerors of the continent. The names that are used to refer to Kekerker are Foul-Mouthed Lion, the one who loves to hit with their hands, and Believer of Education through Violence. However, I didn't. Kekerker. Welcome, Daddy. I couldn't. Because I knew that one day, I would have to tell those children that I was not a god. What? What do you mean, fire god? The Flame Emperor had ruled over the elves as an absolute god. When the elves slaughtered other tribes, burned the world, and caused chaos, the Flame Emperor always used excuses such as the command of God or the will of heaven. The elves, who had been witnessing miracles from the beginning, had no choice but to fall for the Flame Emperor's tricks. I am not a god. Because of that, the feeling of betrayal was even more severe. What the hell is that supposed to mean? Fuck. What kind of quest is this? In any case, I had a bad feeling from the moment it mentioned serial tasks. TCH. In order to proceed with the stage, the Flame Emperor revealed the truth. Do you not understand the words coming out of my mouth? I am not a god. What's with your expressions? So what if I'm a god, or if I'm not a god? You must be joking. If it wasn't for me, you things would have been destroyed by now. Thanks to me, you were able to conquer the continent and become the top race. Fuck, does me not being a god change anything? In any case, it is still true that I helped you all. What massacre? Command? That's all you guys' fault. Wow, you bastards are funny. After enjoying everything you needed to enjoy, why are you throwing a fit now? I didn't use you, you all used me. You guys enjoyed killing those other races too. It was comfortable to use God's name as an excuse, wasn't it? Then you should be grateful. Ungrateful bastards. The result was, naturally, catastrophic. The elves realized that their god didn't exist. There was no such thing as the fire god. There was no reason for the destruction of the other races. The history that they had created over thousands of years. The massacres and wars. Everything was just a con by a human like them, pretending to be the creator. What are you staring at? Do you think I'll be scared if you stare at me? In that way, the elves became divided. The priest class, who reigned at the top of the race, were killed first, by the ones they led. The warrior class split up and started a civil war among themselves. Naturally, the vast majority of the warlords opposed a false god.
Yo. So. Ha!
From the 40th floor, the enemies we fought against were none other than the elves. The race who had believed in and followed the Flame Emperor suddenly became enemies and monsters, blocking the path of our tower. The few survivors of the races destroyed by the Flame Emperor, of course, became enemies as well. They were the ones who rebelled even when he was still claiming to be a god. After it was revealed that he was a human, the resistance became even more intense, as if it would never weaken. Truly well-deserved punishment. How can a being who bears their fangs at their children be a creator and parent? From the moment they bared their fangs, they were a beast. So they will fight each other, kill each other, and only the strong one will survive. The world before I regressed when exactly as Anastasia said. Our tower entered into a never-ending struggle with the elves. Now. That was the story of the past I knew. What will you do? And from now on, it would be a different story. If you choose to not tell the truth here, you can continue to reign as a god like you have been before. Even if you fail this quest, the stages that you cleared so far will be preserved. The entire continent from the 31st to the 39th floors will be incorporated into your tower. The races that worship you as gods will come as a bonus. The lady who walks through the mirage smiled widely. However, if you reveal the secret, everything you have done will be made public. All the conversations you've had, and actions you've taken will become video clips which will then be played directly in the heads of every race. It will be very chaotic. The musclehead might know what you guys are like, but that's just him. The other kids don't know a thing. The lady looked at each of our faces. So I will ask again, what will you choose? Naturally. My answer was fixed. Chapter 262. Image breaking, iconoclasm, 2. Let them find out as much as they like. I spoke confidently to the lady. No. I'd like to ask you to please let them find out. Didn't you say that you're going to play video clips of everything I've done for the goblins directly in their heads? Oh my god. How kind of you. Kim Gongja. My answer, while my companions were still hesitating, came out with astonishing freshness. It was as if I had been waiting for the opportunity to say this. Even if we can't say we raised the best race, we did our best to raise our races. I can really say this without leaving a stain on my heart. Can't you? Anastasia. What are you hesitating for? Are you worried that those kids will be shocked when they see our bare faces? Do you think they will lose themselves in despair and grief at the fact that we are just people asterisk like them? Asterisk, author keeps using human here, but considering there is a race of humans, it doesn't quite fit. Anastasia didn't reply. However, in my best friend's black eyes, there was a clear sense of nervousness. The nervousness in Anastasia's eyes seemed to be murmuring. What if they become disappointed in me? If they swear, complain, or curse me for being a fake god? If so, then what should I do? That was a pressing concern. I nodded slowly. Of course, naturally, you will be nervous. Parents know everything about their children. That's why, when they say they love you, they can love you without a doubt. On the other hand, what about children? Children know almost nothing about their parents. Children are born when their parents are fully grown adults. What their parents used to do, where they were born, what kind of people they were in their hometowns, how they felt after leaving their hometowns, children didn't know those many things about their lives. They didn't want them to know. Parents only wanted their children to know the aspects that they showed them. The gestures that had already matured to some extent. With a smile, while stroking their children's heads, they became angels to these young children, who ruled over them. However, Anastasia. Please look me in the face. Getting up from my seat, I met Anastasia at eye level. Since she was shorter than me, I had no choice but to get down on one knee to look Anastasia in the eyes. The director who raised me really did a lot of things to raise us. How hard must it have been for him to run an orphanage since that time? I told my story. In a deliberately light, casual tone, as if it was no big deal. When the grandfather of the district head died, we just had to dress up in black clothing and attend the funeral, but not the director. That person had nothing to do with us, and he wasn't even close to the director. But he still went to all of the condolence events in the city to show his face. He had to. Well, it's called leaving an impression. This kind of impression is very important in our country. If there is an event at the district office, he has to go immediately. There is a mountain of work to be done at the orphanage, but if he is told to go, he must go. Even if it is an event at the district office, there are a lot of bundle sellers asterisk, who buy all kinds of colorful pottery, succulent plant pots no one needs, and handcrafted wallets no one likes, and set up a little market. All of these shops are supported by the district office, so you can call it a local business district, right? They're just trying to make sales. Asterisk, bundle seller refers to a person who buys and sells goods by putting them in a bundle wrapped in cloth. Nowadays, it is used in a negative way to refer to merchants who move secretly and trade goods on a small scale, unregulated by law or tax. Whenever the director went there, he would always stick with the district head and buy 3 gifts. Saying, "This piece is so pretty." He, who usually got nervous when spending 10,001, would end up casually spending 20,001, or 30,001. I close my eyes. That day, I secretly followed the director from a distance. The bundle seller local business market was like a festival and even sold colorful masks. Wearing a mask, I pretended to be a child moving together with nearby adults while peeping at the director who was walking with the district head. No, head, how did they make such a pretty piece? Wow, there are only master craftsmen gathered on this street. Truly a street of masters. It seems there is one more thing for our district to brag about. I think the kids will love it too. The director's expression, voice, and tone were completely different from when he was at the orphanage. If the children other than me had seen it, they probably would have received the shock of their lives. For us, the director always appeared somewhat distant, a person who we could always visit, but at the same time covered in a layer of mysterious fog. Having said that, These are all handmade crafts, aren't they? Then can I entrust the people who made this to give an orphanage class? By orphanage class. Yes. The children are all well behaved. Although they are well behaved, they don't have many things to play with or learn. Even if it is a succulent plant pot making class, if it is held once a week, I believe it would be good for the children's character development. Wouldn't it be worthwhile for you, head? A workshop sponsored by the City Hall and the district. That workshop now teaches classes to local children, isn't that a pretty picture?
Then
the tuition fee. Phew, it would be great if the district office could apply for it. Then it would become a project that is completely led by the district office. Head, don't you know that our orphanage is very clean? Whether it's manpower or other things, our orphanage is the cleanest place in the area when it comes to accounting. Wouldn't that make the work more comfortable? Director Lee's orphanage certainly is famous for being a comfortable place to work. There are no issues with paperwork. You've never missed a form or deadline. A middle-aged man, whose name I don't know, and whose face I don't, probably forever, nodded. Then let the action officer take charge and get it done. I'll take care of the direction. If the director were to take care of it, it might look a bit strange. What about kindergartens? Don't kindergartners like to play with sand and dirt? Let's give them a pottery class and a handicrafts class to find out. Yes, understood. Thank you. As expected of the head, not only does he make the streets pretty, but he also makes the hearts of the people pretty. It is so relieving to have someone like the head who can step forward to do the work. Our director speaks very well. The group surrounding the district head drew further and further away. I had to chase after them, but I couldn't bear to keep up. It was a great shock to see the director's bare face. How embarrassing. At that time, the director was my parent. He was something more than a parent. He was a teacher to all of us, a counselor who advised us whenever difficulties arose, and a lord who wisely ruled over the closed world of the orphanage. Whenever it was time to go to sleep, the director would tell us stories from thousands of years ago. Every expression, tone and voice we had were inherited from him. To grow on a continental scale. To always stay calm. To be rational. And above all, to be enraged by injustice. To our young selves, how could the director not be a god? How shameful. I found out what kind of face the director walked around with and what kind of voice he spoke within the outside world. The director was not our kind and wise god. The director was just, when I saw him from a distance, talking to the district head or action officer, just an uncle. Uncle. An ordinary uncle. I opened my eyes. Maybe because of the strange silence. Anastasia was looking at my face without saying anything. The heretic questioner, count, and crusader were also looking at me. I nodded once before speaking quietly to them. How about being a bit embarrassed? Because they're young. They are young. In their young minds, the fact that their gods are actual normal people may make them feel immense shame. The person who gave us prophecies in a wonderful voice is actually just someone who knew how to use aura. I thought they were looking down on us and taking care of us with great miracles, but they were just people who were running around and working hard in places we couldn't see. One day, a succulent plant pot making class was held at the orphanage. To the children who were tired of cross-stitching and caricature, the play of fiddling with clay to make bowls was surprisingly novel. Every time a class was held, as many as 15 kids would gather to touch the claw. The pottery teacher was kind, and the children were delighted. I didn't attend. Somehow, it felt embarrassing to attend. It felt like I was committing some kind of disloyalty to the director. And I went through life in silence, without telling anyone what I saw. If they see our true selves, they might feel embarrassed. No, they probably will, but... Recalling the burns of my younger years, I told my current companions. But that's all. After time passes, enough time for those children to accept it, they will eventually accept that we strived, put in effort, and worked hard for their sake. They will understand that we are people too. Will they? Really? Anastasia hesitated. I've heard that such a thing is difficult even between normal parents and children. But if it's between a god and their race like us, it's fine. We were never ordinary parents, and we didn't raise normal children. In the hologram, there was a monster that shrunk and shrunk, until its size had fallen to the level of a large mammoth. Hundreds of thousands of people cheered beside the monster and held a festival of colorful aura. That they had overcome the disaster without any losses, that they had led everything by themselves, and that they had achieved perfect success. Everyone, regardless of race, celebrated these facts. Right. We weren't normal parents and children. Anastasia. We are just a group of the best among the people who entered the tower. And our children are, to be frank, just way better than the humans in our world. There is no reason why things won't work out. I looked away from the hologram and spoke coolly to the lady who walks through the mirage. Tell those kids everything. Seriously? Really? Do you not have to think about it anymore? What's there to worry about? There is no one who could raise them with more devotion than me. To put it bluntly, regardless of if I'm a god, a human, or an alien monster with 100 tentacles, they will accept me. So please tell the goblins everything right away. Wow. As expected of the Death King. I can't hate that overflowing confidence. The lady turned to look at my other companions. What about the other kids? Do the other kids share the same opinion as the Death King? You all cleared from the 31st floor together. So if even one of you chooses not to, it would make things awkward. Well, only those who vote not to will be subjected to the special access restricting measures which will prevent them from moving past the 40th floor. I'll do it. Anastasia opened her mouth. Determination was already written across her face. I'll do it. Regardless of if they despise me or not, that's up to them. If I can't do it because I'm afraid they won't like me, I should have abstained from choosing a race in the beginning. I've already come this far, so even though I wish to raise those kids forever, that's just my greed. So tell the truth to the vampires too. I agree too. The heretic questioner raised his hand. I raised the snails to the best of my ability. Ahaha, my best might be different from other people's best, but compared to those parents who don't even do their best, I'm still considered good. I'm sure when the snails learn the truth, they will definitely think highly of me. So tell the truth to the snails, too. Our innocent psychopath aside. The crusader side. Children have the right to know about their parents. All the more when the children grow up. It is safe to say that the races living on the continent have entered their mature period. Tell the mermaids the truth. The Count agonized. She washed her face with her cat paws several times while groaning to herself. However, after about 5 minutes, the Count finally made up her mind. Well, fine. In any case, I didn't let them starve. When you think about how many people die of starvation in this world, the favors the elves owe me are like a sea of stars. As long as they're born an elf, don't they enter the middle to upper class without doing anything? Come on, this is my greatest confidence. I'm proud. Does the Count agree? I agree. Show the elves the truth. Boo-hoo-hoo, the lady who walked through the mirage chuckled. Seriously. What cute kids. At this rate, I can't keep showing favoritism like this. Well, what do you know? Smack. The lady clapped her hands. The venomous snake and the sword saint, who are still on this stage, have also agreed to disclose the information. Since all 7 of the people participating in the attack have agreed, with my authority as administrator, I will disclose the information to every race. Information about the heretic questioner has been revealed to the entire snail race. That moment. On the other side of the hologram, a murmur began to be heard. Rhyme? What is this, Rimu, a hallucination? No, to say that is a group hallucination. The first race to respond was the snails. The snails, who, while carrying their wrinkled shells on their backs, were dismantling the now useless wooden stairs and tools, raised their antennae while murmuring strangely. As the lady who walks through the mirage said, the was automatically played to them. Tower? Attack? Our great puppy, what the hell? However, the confusion showed no signs of abating. Instead, it was as if the accelerator was pressed down all the way. Information about the Black Dragon Master has been revealed to the entire vampire race. Ki-Kuu, the bats hanging upside down from the palm trees in the forest shook their heads. The stairs that had been built on the monster's body trembled, and countless leaves in the forest fell. Information about the Crusader has been revealed to the entire mermaid race. The mermaids, who were transporting the food, drink and bedding for hundreds of thousands of people on their ships, flinched. Their swirling tails whipped up a spray, and several of the ships rocked violently. That wasn't all. What is this? What's happening in front of our eyes? Did that energy dragon or whatever guy cast a curse or something before he died? No. Just now in my head, I heard a clear voice. This is the truth of the red dolphin. Unless some devil is playing tricks on us. Ugger? Why are you guys like this all of a sudden? The forest, the entire world, began to tremble. Wherever the races built their living spaces, commotions began to erupt one after the other. Villages. Towns. Cities. Or right there, at the energy dragon's grave, where almost all the warriors were gathered. Information about the count has been revealed to the entire elf race. Information about the venomous snake has been revealed to the entire Oni race. Information about the sword saint has been revealed to the entire human race. Then, information about the Death King has been revealed to the entire goblin race. The moment that had to come someday, finally came. Chapter 263. Image Breaking, Iconoclasm, 3. Quest complete. Every race has learned the secret of their god. Have you ever seen the sunset in the forest? Stage clear. You have cleared the 39th floor. When the sun fell below the horizon, all of the palm trees bent to watch the setting sun as if pulled by gravity. The sun didn't look back at them. Thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of palm trees all died in the pitch-black shadows. In the world, only the sky and the river had color, with the black pillars left upright. A world where darkness and color were clearly divided. That can't be. Our God can't be like this. In this place, where nature aloofly played with colors, hundreds of thousands of people were in an uproar. Moreover, our God takes the form of the great puppy. So what are these images that keep flowing into my head, Rimu? That is clearly a human. It doesn't make sense. Lord Kekerker is so handsome. Well, being called the White Lion is not as exaggerated as the romance in a fire play. So it was a disguise? The gods intentionally took the forms of animals in order to approach us more easily. Not ordinary animals, but animals that were black, white, or unique in appearance. Thanks to that, we were able to serve them as gods, so didn't it turn out well? It's a scam. We are the believers of the great puppy, not some strange-looking brat. The heretic questioner, who was looking at the hologram with me, tilted his head to the side. Am I strange-looking? The Black Dragon Master answered that question. You don't look like a snail. Is that so? I thought I looked quite snail-like. What the hell are you? No, in any case, this is not the time to talk about that. That's right. This was not the atmosphere to joke around. The chaos in the hologram image was getting worse. As we were in the dropout waiting room, we could do nothing but watch. Even though the stage clear announcement was made. No one was happy about clearing the stage. Anastasia, the Count, and the Crusader all stared at the hologram with nervous faces. Because nothing has happened, yet. Instead, this should be called the beginning. How the children would react after learning the truth. The success or failure of this attack depended on that. Chain layers in progress. Was it trying to tell us that our hunches were correct? The tower immediately presented us with the next task. Forcibly entering the 40th floor. Since they have reached the 40th floor, the dropouts will now regain the status of attackers once more. The 40th floor quest will be shown. The era didn't change. It was just when the energy dragon's body had been torn apart, and the children were in a state of chaos and agitation. A literal chain layer. Without the slightest gap, we encountered a new quest in the same moment. Plus. The icon of the snail race. Difficulty, B+. Mission objective, the heretic question helped the snail race. Under your devoted care, the snails were able to become one of the most successful early civilizations. The territory of the Rime Empire was the same as the area currently covered by the goblin race. The snails distributed tasks according to the characteristics of each race, cultivating a highly integrated division of labor, and developing endlessly by using great cities as trade bases. But when the light is strong, the shadows are dense. In your empire, the other races were used as slaves. Eventually, these slaves rebelled, destroying your great empire, and the proud snail cities. After that, the snails became the public enemies of the entire continent, and were forced to move away from their homes. The heretic questioner, you were the first to taste victory, and the first to taste defeat. Now, the snails know about you. They realize that you are not a god. The glory and luxury that the snails themselves enjoyed, the yoke they had to bear, and the oppression they had to endure, all came from you. Now, how will the snail race treat you? Initiating the vote. 1. I liked receiving your guidance. 2. I hated receiving your guidance. Try to get as many votes as possible. If option 1 receives more than half of the votes, then you will automatically clear the 40th floor. But you cannot hand out bribes or make promises for a vote. You can only try to move the hearts of the snail race members through conversation or personal communication. However, if you lose the vote, you must first exterminate every living member of the snail race on the continent before you can move on to the next stage. Plus. Everyone in the waiting room fell silent. Anastasia, the Count, the Crusader, and even I, kept our mouths closed. Then, we slowly looked at the psycho who was selected as the main character of this quest. Ahaha, understood. I got it. The psychopath, who, for those born in this world, would rank in the top 5 list of parents that should never be met, laughed cheerfully. Looks like I'm the first hitter.
Ah.
Anastasia despaired. That's a big deal. What's wrong with you? Isn't the heretic questioner the first hitter? Right.
Ah.
I shouldn't have fallen for Gongjaw's sugar coating. At the very least, I should have figured out some kind of minimal safety protocol in advance. Perhaps make and distribute some kind of propaganda material to show how hard I worked for them, then arouse a sympathetic public opinion. Shit, that's one of my specialties. That's not revealing your secret, that's brainwashing the truth. Anastasia, who is always calm, always gets flustered whenever she encounters something that she might consider her own failure. Being a perfectionist seemed tiring. It's fine. Don't worry too much. What? What's fine? Is it that the things we have done for those kids, the favors we've given them, have all been undone, and the seeds of their anger are growing? Or... Anastasia turned and pointed to the heretic questioner. Is this a situation where we all entrust our fates to that 100% pure psycho? Ahaha. He has to persuade those snail children. I can only imagine him tilting his head to the side and saying he doesn't know what he did wrong. The heretic questioner just smiled brightly. In the midst of that, the situation in the hologram continued to escalate. The deity who leads us is a dolphin with beautiful pink skin. Keek, how can a human without gills or fins pretend to be our god? However, the one who can transform into a cat should be our god, right? Then it doesn't seem that much of a problem. Our cat god is a polymorph who can take the form of a human and wander around the world to play, and is also a regular subject in fire plays. The mining city we built, the children who were buried. It's because of the god of the snail race that we were taken to the mines and lived like slaves for hundreds of years. The sunset in the forest illuminated every face. Half of their faces were black, resembling the shadow-covered palm trees, and the other half was vivid red from the sun setting in the sky. Why did they do that? They clearly regarded us as toy soldiers to play with. They didn't. Look carefully at the video. The gods were just trying to take care of us. The problem is they are not gods, they are humans. Those who opened their mouths in anger, those who were furious, those who confusedly held their heads in both hands, those who didn't know what to do, those who were lost in thought with their hands on their chins, and those who occasionally went, "Ah, so that's what it was," as they realized something. False gods. Someone shouted. We must drag those gods from their false sanctuary. Didn't it say they were human? They always said that they cared for us, that they loved us, but in the end, it was just to achieve their own tasks. To climb the so-called tower and incorporate this stage into their territory. Although they were still a minority. Forces who felt betrayed and reacted violently at the fact that we were human began to appear one after the other. To them, it didn't matter how hard we worked or what kind of life we lived. They're not God. That alone was enough for them to feel betrayed. And that sense of betrayal led them to curse the gods who had watched over them for thousands of years. Their curses were soon composed of cries to kill us. That's right. Let's drag the false gods down. Let us rebuke those false gods for the lives our ancestors received, and for everything. Bring down the false gods. Bring down the false gods. Nevertheless, the vast majority of the races were either stunned or dazed. However, if left alone, the anger of the few would spread like an epidemic that would quickly engulf the forest. Not fine. Gongja. This is really not fine. Anastasia murmured. She had lived as the guild leader of the Black Dragon Guild. So she was more experienced than anyone else in matters of public opinion and incitement. Since she was the Black Dragon Master, she must be able to deeply feel how ominous the current situation was, and feel even more anxious at the fact that the heretic questioner was the one who had to put this situation to rest. No. However, I kept cutting off Anastasia's worries. When I said it's fine, I didn't mean that the situation right now was good. I'm not saying that the heretic questioner is reliable. Just that. I turned back to the hologram. Our children will be fine. It was at that moment. Whappish! The sound of a whip resounded in the forest. Whether it was those who were angry, those who were shouting, those who were worried, or those who were anxious, the sound of the whip pierced everyone's ears. Startled, hundreds of thousands of people turned to look in the direction the sound came from. So noisy, rhyme. The 629th chairman of the Fire River Council. Simslam, the strongest warrior in the snail race. Stop clamoring. What? How can we not make noise when such an earth-shattering event occurred? From now on, I will put forward a bill in the name of the chairman of the Fire River Council. The name of the bill will be, those who want to say anything about the gods in this place have to first fight the chairman of the Fire River Council. Every time you block or dodge an attack, you will be given one chance to speak. Once again, the Fire River Council has a unique custom. Regardless of race or origin, anyone who was in the top 2,000 strongest beings in this world could unconditionally join the Fire River Council. As soon as they joined, they were treated as a council member who could freely speak or vote in meetings that determined the fate of their species. However, if they were to lose in a duel, they would have to yield their opinion. As a result, the person who was the best at fighting was bound to become the chairman, and the votes initiated by the chairman had no choice but to be passed. Wasn't it natural? If there were any objections, it was enough to challenge them to a duel and beat them up. All of the members of the Fire River Council are here. Rimu. If there is anyone who objects, just raise your hand. Simslam spoke coolly. No one will object anyway. Unanimity has long been the tradition and pride of our Fire River Council. The warriors hesitated. It was the first time in the history of the council that a non-goblin had become the chairman. This fact alone proved that Simslam was a crazy sword fighter. After all, there were many goblins who were not convinced, and it was said that thanks to that, the funeral industry at that time experienced a boom. Ugher. Chairman. While all the other council members were silent, a goblin raised his hand. No. Now, it was right to call them an Ashura, not a goblin. Unlike a short while ago, the children's skin was shining red. The red flesh on their muscular shoulders, chests, and abs all glistened as if a layer of oil had been applied to them. The fangs protruding from their mouths in the shape of crescent moons were so sharp that they made anyone who looked at them nervous. I'm not particularly against the bill proposed by the chairman, huh? The fearsome Ashura had a very polite attitude. Both of their hands were placed on their stomach, their head was bowed at a 45-degree angle, and they didn't radiate even the slightest hint of aura or fighting spirit. If you don't, then what is it? Ha! Haven't our appearances changed a lot? Ugher. We've also grown a little bigger. Also, doesn't it seem like our aura capacity has gone up a lot? It's not just low-level aura that has been piled up and expanded. This is the aura of the energy dragon who has been alive since the beginning of this world. Isn't it amazing? What are you trying to say? That, Chairman. I think we are a little stronger now. Perhaps the position of chairman will change from the 629th to the 630th today, and perhaps that person might be me. Are you requesting a duel? Just once. No more words were needed. Simslam gripped a sword with her one remaining tentacle and rushed toward the challenger. There was a considerable distance between the two at the beginning, but Simslam was able to cross this gap in one step. You go. However, the challenger was no beginner. He was a master who could shake his shoulders a bit in the Fire River Council. Clang! The Ashura raised his axe and blocked the attack. His red palms tingled from the impact. Crazy. You have 1 second to say whether you are on the brink of life or death, or the brink of life. The brink of life. The brink of life. I'm on the brink of life. Thud. The challenger dropped his axe. Simslam's sword had already reached the challenger's chin. Sweat beading on his red forehead, the challenger looked at the strongest being of his generation with disbelief-filled yes. No, we evolved. Are you the only ones that can evolve? Rhyme. I also evolved. It seems that you think while you were absorbing the energy dragon's aura, I was only sucking on the forest air. Shit. If the goblin race and the snail race were to separate into two groups and fight, the goblins would win by a landslide. Your evolution seems to have had a more dramatic effect. However, I am not just a snail. Rhyme. Simslam shook her sword. I am the strongest snail in this world. As she said this, she looked around at the hundreds of thousands of people who had just watched her duel. Is there anyone else who opposes? If there is none, I hereby declare that the proposed bill has been passed. This place has become the temporary seat of the Fire River Council, and as far as the authority of the Fire River Council is concerned, anyone who sets foot in this place must follow our instructions. If anyone wants to open their mouths about the gods again, then you must at least block one sword from me. Just like the council member who just faced me. Perhapup, Simslam chuckled. This world is too beautiful to be stained by the excuses of weak bastards. And unexpected events also began to occur in the dropout waiting room. Pot. White light leaked from the sofa the heretic questioner was sitting on and slowly engulfed his body. By the time we all looked over at what was going on, the heretic questioner spoke as if he had just realized something. Indeed. Persuading them through conversation or personal communication means I have to go there and talk personally. Ahaha. Well, it certainly is much more efficient than summoning members of the snail race here one person at a time. Whoosh. The light rapidly intensified. Perhaps after a few seconds, it would completely cover the heretic questioner and send him from this place to that world. I had to warn him before that. Mr. Heretic Questioner. Yes. My master. You are the parent of those children. A parent. Understand? You have to answer and talk to them with the feeling of being a parent. No, damn it, even if I say that, you wouldn't understand. The heretic questioner smiled widely. Yes. I don't understand. Damn it. Just try to think about and imagine the perspective of other people as much as possible. Understand? If it's difficult, ask the kids around you. Smiling, the heretic questioner saluted. I'll try my best. Pot. The white light enveloped the heretic questioner's entire body. Chapter 265, Family Discussion, 2. The heretic questioner disappeared without a trace. In the now empty space, there was a slight depression in the middle of the sofa, as if it had been stretched by the heretic questioner's little weight. We looked back and forth between the empty seat on the sofa and the hologram. Kim Gongja. Do you really think he'll do well? The heretic question has also grown a lot compared to the past. Even if a psycho has a change of heart and becomes a psycho, it has only decreased by one letter star. It's still the same thing. Asterisk, there is no good equivalent for this in English, but you get the idea. Anastasia. Think about it. Wouldn't it be great progress if the word path in psychopath was removed? Indeed. If you look at it that way. Oi. What the hell are you two talking about? The crusader interrupted our conversation with a dumbfounded expression. After you two became friends, just listening to you talk is driving me insane. The Black Dragon Master and the Death King. It is shocking enough that you two people, who I never thought could become friends, could do so, but what's even more shocking is how well you two get along. One is the epitome of a dumb gangster asterisk, while the other is a perfect example of a cold city girl. Asterisk, good for nothing. What is it? Are you lonely because we are the only ones who are so close? I have always kept my heart open to the Crusader too. Hey. Friends. Companionship. Friendship. Come on. This guy is the second ranked in our tower. Just as the Crusader sighed through her helmet, a change occurred in the hologram. The laughter that had erupted in the waiting room not so long ago was heard once more. This time, it came from within the hologram. Just like if we were walking down the street, smelled something bad, and turned our heads to see the cause of the bad smell, we instinctively turned our heads to look at the heretic questioner like a trash can that was at least 30 years old. Hello. Dear snails. And non-snails. The cutest blonde trash can in the world smiled brightly. This is the first time everyone is seeing me in this form. When I stayed in Remepolis, I mainly possessed and used puppies to communicate with you. Even when I appeared in your dreams, I insisted on using the image of a puppy. So, perhaps, this location is the best place to greet you from. The heretic question was floating in the air above the forest. Nice to meet you. People of the snail race. The heretic questioner smiled brightly. It was like a twinkle in the sky. Is that? It's the same. That's the same person from the video. What is this? The members of the snail race looked up at the sky blankly. Not just the snails. Ever since SimSlam's overwhelming display in the duel, many races had focused their attention on this place. In other words, the place the heretic questioner had been sent, the air above SimSlam's head, was the best stage with which to capture everyone's attention at the same time. Rhyme. Isn't that like a god? So beautiful. The snails muttered unwittingly. That was right. The figure leisurely standing in the air, in itself, could already be considered holy. In fact, this was just the formal act of invoking the ability of sacred technique, God send off every 0.5 seconds to make it seem as if he was floating in the sky. Of course, there was no way for the snails to know that. The children could only look up at their God with entranced faces. At that moment, a glimmer of hope passed through the minds of my companions, who were sitting in the waiting room and staring intently at the hologram. Huh? This. Isn't it going surprisingly well? Right. The heretic questioner naturally has a killer appearance. In fact, even if he ranked fourth based just on his appearance, no one would object. He's the most handsome guy in our tower, so if he gave them a few national treasure level smiles, it might be surprisingly easy to incite them. That's right. It seemed we had underestimated the heretic questioner too much. Handsomeness. That deceptive face which, together with the black dragon master, split the stake of good looks in our tower in two. In addition to that were a deceptive voice and smile. Even when that deceptive body walked on the ground, it was enough to delude the world and deceive the people, and now, it was floating in the sky. Then wouldn't that be God? People of the snail race. The heretic questioner respectfully clasped his hands together on his chest. After 10 years of being the leader of the 10,000 temples, the heretic questioner's gestures as he offered prayers were truly reverent. I love you all. The face of the praying heretic questioner was as beautiful as well-carved marble. The slightly lowered eyebrows, the eyes shining through the long eyelashes. The exquisitely narrowed lips as if telling a secret, or confessing. All of these gestures made the snails stare blankly upward. I know you all have seen the videos. I, the heretic questioner, the man who you worshipped as the great puppy, was confined and separated from my companions for 200 years for your sake. I only wanted to live with you, to watch over you and take care of you from the closest distance. Rhyme. Right. We didn't see the other gods because after they finished their task, they hurriedly went to another place. Another world? The outside world? In any case, they went somewhere else. However, our God stayed with us. It's difficult for a person to endure 50 years, let alone 200. He endured 200 years without being able to reveal his true self, or even talk to his friends. Yes. The heretic questioner clasped his hands together. Then smiled brightly once again. Because I love you all.
Oh.
Dash. The snails started to get excited. This was natural. After all, the truth that the one who led you was not a god but a human was obviously shocking. It was a hard truth that was difficult for anyone to bear. But on the other hand, the truth that even though he is a human he still loves you and is committed to you was so moving that it could overturn the shock. So what if he wasn't a god? What was a god in the first place? Isn't the one who watches over us and cares for us our God? Angel. A young snail waved their tentacles. You are an angel. Right. You are the angel that loves our race. Angel. You are so beautiful.
Ah.
Angel. Thank you. It would be enough for the name God to be changed to Angel. Ahaha. My beloved snails. And the heretic questioner was a character optimized for the mass production and distribution of instigation, deception, fabrication, multi-level marketing, and fanaticism. Even if you were to take the most alluring voice, attach it to the most beautiful face template, then install the most terrible psychopath AI, you wouldn't be able to create something like the heretic questioner. Do not be surprised that you and I look different. Appearance is nothing compared to the love we share. I, too. Snapping his fingers, the heretic questioner's height began to change. It changed into an adult form. Then, as the snails shouted Rimu Rimu, the heretic questioner changed back to the form of a boy. As you saw, I can change my appearance as much as I want. Appearance is not important. Love. The only thing that matters is my heart which loves you and cherishes you as truly beautiful beings.
Oh.
Oh my rhyme. Great puppy, guide of our race. Indeed. It seems I definitely underestimated the ability of the heretic questioner. Sitting in the waiting room, I looked at the hologram dumbfoundedly. He's the type of guy who could create a cult no matter what world he was thrown into. He was born with it, born to be a cult leader. Isn't that too harsh? I think it's a mistake for such an innate ability to be allowed in this world in the first place. The heretic questioner found all kinds of religions, countless denominations, and all manners of heresies from the outside world. He met them all, processed them, and settled the unprocessed believers. In the realm of religion, it is absolutely impossible to defeat the heretic questioner. However, there were always exceptions. Noisy. Smack. The sound of a whip resonated throughout the area. The dense forest leaves trembled, and the fragile barks on the tree trunks were swept away by the wind. Suddenly coming to their senses, the snails turned their antennae in the direction from whence the sound came. The Fire River Council just submitted a bill, but it seems that my foolish conspecifics did not realize the severity of that bill. The strongest member of the snail race. The heroine who still ruled over the Fire River Council even though she only had one tentacle left. Looking very upset, Simeslam's antennae twitched. If you want to talk about God, you must challenge me to a duel and block one blow. That is the law. Clear, articulate, indisputable. The law is so clear, and yet here you are, barking like dogs, rhyme, or is it because you forgot to take the guidance period into consideration? It would be fine to punish all those who broke the law. The air in the forest suddenly became dank. Considering the uniqueness of this case, I will let it slide this time. Peru. Rimmu. Sighs came from all over the forest. There was no one who didn't know how strict Simslam was, and she was especially famous among the snail race. The general opinion was that Simslam was stricter towards her own race. Rhyme. When the surroundings became quiet, Simslam raised her antennae and looked at the heretic questioner. Heretic questioner, you said it was? Yes. That's right. Let me ask first. Is that the real name of the great rhyme? If you're asking for my real name, that is difficult to answer. The heretic questioner smiled. I have a name that represents my life, and a name that represents my birth. Heretic questioner is the former. In a word, for you, it is similar to the title, Chairman of the Fire River Council. It reveals my position, discloses my stance, and shows my obligations and capabilities. I am Simslam. Simslam looked up at the heretic questioner expressionlessly. Simslam. That is my name. I can be the chairman of the Fire River Council, or I could quit being the chairman. I have a life before I became chairman, and I can carve out a new life after I am no longer chairman. So in your words. Simslam. That is my only name. What is your name? Time passed. It was still noon as the sun blazed down. The noon sunlight bounced back and forth on leaves of the palm trees, scattering split shadows similar to fractals on the ground. Simslam was covered in a split shadow, and the heretic questioner was also covered in a shadow that had been split 2 or 3 times. Bambolina. Bambolina? Yes. The heretic questioner smiled faintly. It means doll. From your perspective, it's a different language. You could call me Kukla, if you want, I don't mind. However, I will ask that you do not call me Bambolina if possible. Why is that? That is the name that only my master calls me by. If you must call me by my real name, call me Kukla. Understood. Then Kukla. The waiting room. While listening to this series of conversations, my companions silently turned to look at me. The fact that I had become the heretic questioner's master had been spread through the mouth of none other than the heretic questioner himself. As for how special the contract between us was, someone like the Black Dragon Master or the Crusader would have a rough idea. Only to me. The heretic questioner told his children his real name, which only I, the one he had sworn loyalty to, knew. He told them. Bambolina should have realized it by now. So I had no choice but to tell them. That isn't just a meeting between cult leader and believers. It took many conditions for me to learn the heretic questioner's real name. I had to overcome many obstacles, and prove my qualifications and abilities. Prove that I was more capable. That I could use you better. However, there were people in the world who he had to reveal himself to even without conditions. To paraphrase, it's like a discussion between parents and children. Children. Daughter. Son. Even if he is the head of a great guild, and one of the top 5 in the tower, the heretic questioner can't reveal his title as leader of the 10,000 temples to his children. 4th rank? He can't boast about such achievements. Maybe if the parents and children spent time together, and the parents grew old and the children grew up, and they reached a point where they were living in the same world, then they might understand and respect the weight of the titles, leader of the 10,000 temples, and 4th ranked, and a closer relationship might sprout from it. However, not now. As Bambolina said, this is the first time he is facing them. The first face-to-face meeting between parents and children. Not as the heretic questioner or the 10,000 temple lord, but only with his real name. He had no choice but to reveal his bare face. Unless he intended to take advantage of the children. Within the hologram, the heretic questioner was still smiling. However, the atmosphere surrounding the smile was a bit cold. This smile, which was so warm and bright and kind when he was everyone's cult leader, had now become a smile that was nothing more than a courtesy to reassure others. Even though the other party was none other than the snail race, who were no different from his own children. Rimu. Simslam expressionlessly looked up at the smiling God Angel Father. We, the snail race, have a unique way of thinking. The only thing worth existing in this world are the useful things. Only the useful should survive, and the useless should be ignored so that they face natural selection on their own. Lifting her one remaining tentacle, Simslam continued. We strive our whole lives to be useful. Rest is simply a preparation stage for work. Sleep is the rest stage for everyday life. I wake up early in the morning to train, and return late at night after finishing my work. In the meantime, I constantly check myself to see how useful I've been and whether I was negligent. Simslam continued. Her world crawled along the dark ground, hidden in the shadows of the countless palm trees. Rhyme. The snails who clung to the shaded trees with their mucus nodded their antennae in agreement with Simslam. Rhyme. Useless things begin to turn yellow. We give bluestones to those things, and let them rot in decayed underground tunnels. Bluestones were stones that shine deep blue, a drug mainly consumed by the snail race. Because it was highly addictive, they were generally avoided by the snail race. Upon hearing those words, the surrounding snails nodded again. Rhyme. The members of the snail race chirped from the shadows, like the sounds of cuckoos in a dark forest. Do we need to kill them? No. Rather, it's better to keep them alive as long as possible. Because when we, normal snails, see those guys screaming, it doesn't matter if we starve to death, just give us bluestones, we would think, oh, they are still useful to us. Since they're still useful, we can rest assured. Rhyme. Even if there are some who fail to keep their lives, it's not a bad thing. In any case, they are the ones who ruined their lives for bluestones. They say that bluestones are better than life, so every time, we give them gifts that are better than life. Rhyme. Eat. Eat more. Eat as much as you want. Rhyme. Rhyme. They are dregs, but they are useful dregs. Because they make us alert. Rhyme. We are a great race. We are the race who subjugated the 6 other races under our tentacles, built great caves, and ruled. Even though the 1,000-year empire collapsed until the lowly blades of the slaves, the empire is still alive in our hearts and minds. And even today, we strive to live useful days as the people of the empire. Rhyme. This. Rhyme. These are all things we learned from you. Rhyme. You taught us. You told us what was useful and useless. We, the children, nodded. After growing up, we moved our tentacles to take action. You told us to be proud, so we were proud. You led us to build an empire, so we created one according to your words. Rhyme. You gave birth to us. What we feel. When, where, and how to despise someone. How to feel happy. How to be proud. How strongly to feel about things you shouldn't do. All of it was taught by you and inherited from you. So, Kukla. Even if you didn't give birth to us physically, you gave birth to our minds, our senses, and our lives. You are the parent of all of us. Look at the way we speak, for example. In the beginning, you called yourself Rhyme. Because of that, we say rhyme when we are in a good mood, and Rimu when we are in a bad mood. Understand? Your name determines our good and bad moods. Rhyme, rhyme. Rimu. Rhyme. Nevertheless. Simslam glanced around. After hanging around the idiots of the goblin race, the red-skinned Asuras were listening seriously to Simslam's words with folded arms. Was it so interesting to be so serious? Pure up, Simslam scoffed. I realized how abnormal our race was. A person could be useful or not. They can exist even if they're not. Aburka, who is praised as the strongest warrior in the history of the goblin race, was born with albinism and found it difficult to even walk under the sun. He must have failed as a warrior. However, he treated his albinism as an obstacle to overcome, and overcame it, then built his own life as a series of overcoming. Simslam murmured. If he had been born into our race, he would have lived his entire life stuffed in a hole and addicted to bluestone since childhood. Then, he would have devoted his life to being useful by accepting our ridicule and sneers. Kukla. Simslam continued to look expressionlessly at the heretic questioner. Our father. Yes. Without realizing, even the heretic questioner's expression had disappeared. To this unsmiling parent, the seasoned snail race child asked. Why is our father a psycho? The heretic questioner held his chin. Why I became a psycho? That's right. Rhyme. That's a tough question. Within he groaned. The heretic questioner pondered seriously. However, the heretic questioner's serious expression was the same whether he faced a math problem that was difficult to solve or not. This was both an advantage and a disadvantage of being the heretic questioner. At the very least, it wasn't the face of the parent the children wanted. Why are you so obsessed with success? For that reason, Simslam did not stop her offensive. Why did you devote your mind to distinguishing between things like useful and useless? It would be fine if you just distinguished them, but why did you have to distinguish everything so quickly? In the presence of the entire snail race. No, in the presence of all the other races, Simslam questioned their god, the god who ruled over the continent with the unconditional devotion of an ancient empire. People are not omnipotent. I don't know much. But I do know it's impossible to see the potential hidden in a child in front of you with a single glance. That is why we should be humble, and give the child a grace period where they can live relaxedly until their abilities blossom. That would be called education. Rimu. So, why does Kirka have to quickly sort out the useful and useless things? Question their parent. Father. Why are you like that? Can you not live differently? At all? Night began to fall in the forest. The last rays of sunset slipped from the damp leaves and disappeared. Whoosh! Moving around busily, the elves began to place torches here and there. Whoosh! Then, the panorama of snail race members, who had been hidden in the shadows of the forest until then, was revealed through the dim light. Hundreds of thousands of snails. They could go anywhere by crawling on the ground or climbing on walls. The homes they actually lived in for their entire lives were on their backs in their spiral-shaped shells. A race that was supposed to be free was now bound listening to the conversation between Simslam and the heretic questioner with bated breaths. Rhyme. Rimu. This was not because they were overwhelmed by Simslam's influence. Neither was it because they were overwhelmed. It was simply because Simslam, at that moment, represented their entire race. On behalf of every member of their race, to their parent, she said what they wanted to say, asked what they wanted to ask, released the resentment they wanted to release, gave the blame they wanted to give. All of this strung together in the form of questions, a discussion that they were having there. That is to say, Simslam had become the representative of their race, or to be more precise, the eldest sister of their race. While their eldest sister pointed out their parents' faults, the other members of the snail race sat quietly like little brothers and sisters. The scale was enormous. It was literally a discussion with their parent. Tuck. The heretic questioner slowly descended from the air to sit opposite Simslam. He stopped using the sacred technique, God send off. Now, standing between the eyes of the parent and child was no longer the distance between the sky and the ground, nor was it their difference in height. A torch that had been lit by someone flickered slightly. Simslam. I owe you all apologies for many things. The empire fell because I wasn't thorough enough. All of the privileges you had disappeared, and from then on, the life of the snail race was reduced to that of a barren-level race, mining salt on the outskirts and supplying it to the goblins. That is my failure. When it comes to that, there's nothing I could say even if I had 10 mouths, sorry. No. It's not like that. Raising her tentacle, Simslam rubbed it across her face. It seemed like she was massaging the area between her eyebrows tiredly. The first empire, the glory of the younger years, the failed past, and the subsequent turnaround to the laborers of the present. I'm not blaming you for this changing history. No, on the contrary, Father worked really hard and did well. Which races in this world were able to become the hegemons of this continent? The snail race. And the goblin race. There were only 2. Father was able to reach a level that only 2 people in this world were able to. Even if you did crash later, rhyme. We respect Father's ability. What we are asking about is not Father's success or failure. Look at us. Simslam got closer. Look at us. Kukla. The sole remaining tentacle, covered in scars from countless battles, tightly covered the back of the heretic questioner's hand. The heretic questioner looked. Look at us. Father. And on Simslam's face was the exact same smile the heretic questioner had. Faced with this smile, the heretic questioner seemed to freeze for a while, as if he'd been paralyzed. We smile as we throw useless children into the bluestone cave, saying, it can't be helped. Perhaps that is our dirtiness. Perhaps it is a smile that comes from viciousness. However, it's different. Father. It is an innocent smile we got from you. It's unfortunate but this one is useless. Let's throw them away. Ahaha. We look a little different, and we have a few more arms than you do, or a few less. Simslam playfully flicked her one remaining tentacle. Nevertheless, we inherited almost your entire legacy. What you intended. And even what you didn't intend. Your laughter, gestures, the very weight you chose to sink into this world, everything. That's why, Father does not need to thank us for achieving the first empire, nor should you apologize for the empire's downfall. Those are all secondary issues. What we want to know is why our father is a psycho. For what reason? Only then can we understand why we are psychos. The antennae of every snail turned in the direction the heretic questioner was sitting. Tell us. Father. We want to know. Silence fell. In this miry silence, the heretic questioner opened his mouth. The 40th floor quest is currently underway. Then. 2. No, why are you so obsessed with making money? The elves surrounded the count. The atmosphere in the forest was noisy, as if a court hearing was being held, and unlike their beautiful appearances, the elves' faces carried sharp grimaces as they bombarded their god with waves of attacks. What you do is for money. What you don't do is for money. Money no matter what. The world is all about money, money, money. So that makes you upset? Hugh, holding a hookah, the Count let out a puff of smoke. It was a hookah developed by the elves, and this person had just purchased it at a high premium. The parent had purchased the product developed by their children, and as one could see from the atmosphere, they were not particularly pleased about it. It feels good to make money. Doesn't it? No, just touching money feels good, seriously, couldn't you teach us something other than making money? Like what? Music? Singing? Art? How to exaggerate and say things like, this world is so beautiful I could just die. Or how to make others lose themselves and say, you are so beautiful the world could just die. I don't know anything like that. I can't teach you anything other than how to make money. Why is that? I was born as a child who had nothing. Behind the smoke from the hookah, the Count grinned. I had a house that was empty. No, actually, I didn't have a house. Do you know what a garbage city is? You don't. The world I was born in is much larger than your continent and has a lot more people, and the garbage that people threw away was enough to create an entire mountain range. Nevertheless, sometimes there is garbage that can be recycled. I'm talking about garbage that could make money. Then merchants were bound to get screwed. Garbage that others threw away after eating, garbage that others threw away after pooping, garbage that others threw away after playing, garbage that others threw away after having sex. I sifted through all kinds of garbage to find the garbage that could at least make money. The business acumen of every elf was sharp. They briefly pounded the calculators in their heads. Was such a business profitable? The profitability seems pretty bad. Hoo-hoo. The Count smiled cheerfully. It can't make money, right? It's bad, right? Yes. That's right. You're correct. That's why my daily wages were even less than little boogers. Even so, if I was taken advantage of by adults, I was left with almost nothing. What else could I do? All I could do was wake up while the adults were sleeping and secretly work overtime rummaging through the piles of garbage. Whether I got caught or not was a small risk. I had to split my sleep up 4 to 5 times a day in order to pretend everything was okay. That way, I could collect as much valuable garbage as possible. Listen carefully, my children. At least, you are like children. The Count slowly put down the hookah. Then, she leaned over and whispered to the tens of thousands of elves looking at her. In a somber voice. With a bitter tone. Asking me why I didn't teach you anything else, don't be pathetic. The moment you did something so pathetic, you already proved that you were nothing but babies. Making money is hard. But you are lucky to be able to make money. The Count's gaze seemed to be shrouded in a ghastly aura. Those who don't have money. For example, let's say there was a little kid living in Garbage City who, all of a sudden, desperately wanted to learn piano. That's just a delusion. Don't you think so? Something so beautiful could only happen in a dream. If that kid really wants to learn piano, first they have to be fortunate enough to find a used piano in the garbage mountain, then, they have to be fortunate enough to find an old person around who knows how to tune a piano, then, they have to be fortunate enough to be able to read and collect sheet music that had been thrown away, and lastly, they have to be fortunate enough to have musical talent. For those who don't have money, just the desire to want to learn something, or want to do something is the gamble of a lifetime. What I mean is that it is a gamble they would have to risk their time, luck, life, everything they have, just to touch it. What about you? The Count looked around at her audience. Upon making eye contact with the Count, some elves couldn't help but shudder. Among them, there were certainly elves who had lived longer than the Count, but it was difficult for them to withstand the pressure of the fifth ranked in the tower. What about you? Sometimes it was easy to overlook because she often turned into a cat and pawed at foxtails. Born into the lowest class in a garbage city, the Count had become a magnate who controlled all of the commercial districts in the tower. There were very few people on this continent, in the tower, or in the world outside who could withstand the malice in the Count's breath. Do you want to learn music? Pay for it. Use money to find a teacher. Buy sheet music. Buy a musical instrument. Right, you might have to think carefully when you buy a musical instrument. They're quite expensive. Choose an instrument based on your level of enthusiasm for music and the capacity of your household. Carefully, right, you have to be careful. The Count laughed. It was an old laugh that was filled with poison. You're able to think carefully because of money. Money gives you many possibilities. Music? If you don't think it's worth it, you can stop. It costs money, but you're not lacking that little money. Many people are mistaken, money is not a goal or result. It is the starting point. As your parent, I simply gave you the starting point. The Count pulled a fan out of her pocket. Right, you're worrying about why our parent only taught us to make money, aren't you? Fine. That's fine. Take your time to think about it. Even if you waste your time thinking about it, you're not in a situation where you'll starve if you can't meet your daily wages, are you? Then you can enjoy wasting. Worries. Thoughts. Contemplation. They are all enjoyable waste. This is because whenever you lose yourself in your worries, or get absorbed in your contemplation, you will secretly realize that you have enough to spend the rest of your lives in leisure. Do you understand? It is the subtle luxuries that make you amazing. Or, at least, gives you the illusion of being amazing. The Count beamed. Then, she opened her fan and covered the lower half of her face. Think whenever you want to think, live whenever you want to live, and do whatever you want to do. That's called freedom. Money gives you freedom. Only money. So I'll ask you again, my children. Or people who are like children. The Count's cat-like eyes were locked onto the tens of thousands of elves. Was it really unfortunate to be born as my children? Or do you think it was unfortunate? If that is the case, then how did you feel when you thought it was unfortunate to be born as that person's child? Did it feel bad? Or, perhaps... The Count grinned. When you thought about it, you felt a little proud, a little boastful, or even felt a little better? As I said, thoughts, worries and contemplation are enjoyable luxuries. It was a smile that curved like a dark crescent moon. Aha, this crescent moon let out a laugh. From my perspective, your lives seem pretty enjoyable, don't you think? Then. The 41st floor quest is currently underway. 3. Why did you choose us? The mermaid race asked the Crusader. We are creatures who live in water. On the other hand, the great dolphin, you, seem to be a being who lives on land. The worlds we live in are different. Drawn all over the bodies of the mermaids were tattoos that looked like waves, so that when the mermaids swam together, it looked like beautiful waves washing ashore. They were a race of the water. Kekerker chose the goblins. Rhyme chose the snails. Although they look different, they are all races who were born on land and live on land. They probably have more similarities than differences. But, what about you? Even now, the mermaids were gathered in the river. Why us? The Crusader sat on a huge rock that rose up out of the river, and this rock was surrounded by tens of thousands of mermaids swimming in the water. The Crusader looked down at the river. The blue moonlight reflected gently off of the forest river. Upon closer inspection, one would realize that it was not moonlight, but the tail of a mermaid. With their arms resting on the rock and their body submerged in the river, the mermaids splashed water with their tail. Every time they splashed in the water, the droplets smeared with moonlight shattered brilliantly. On the land. As she looked at the moon shattering on the water's edge, the Crusader spoke. I didn't want to make you live on land. If you lived on land, you would come to hate it. Gradually, little by little, you would begin to hate everything that walked on land too. You would come to despise them. Every living thing on land would look terrible. Clink. The Crusader slowly removed her helmet. The blonde hair, which had been asleep in the iron bucket, relaxed as it trickled down. I didn't want to raise you like that. I didn't want you to smell the contempt of the world with every breath, but to simply feel the refreshing scent of the sea. I didn't want the heavy gravity to pull you down, so I made you swim. I hoped the light waves and merciful water surface would accept your swimming. Murmuring, the Crusader looked down at the moon reflected in the water. Her blonde hair hung down, hiding her face and covering the corner of her mouth. So her voice seemed to flow from the moon reflected in the water, rather than her. The air is too light. The ground is too hard. For someone like me, despite clearly being alive, it is so easy to stand, so easy to walk, that it's difficult to feel my own existence at times. I grew accustomed to it. However, you are different. Splash. Someone flapped their tail, causing ripples to spread across the river. Other ripples could be seen overlapping with that one. Stopping their actions, the tens of thousands of mermaids looked at their mother. The surface is light. The depths are heavy. The sea floor should be terrifying. Unlike when we walk, you can feel the world around you every time you swim. You can feel your own body, your own outline, and your own existence as you swim through the world. When you skillfully pierce the waves crashing down on you, you can look up at the bright sun shining brilliantly on the sea, and the moment you see it, you will feel happy. I thought you would be pleased. You could drown yourself in your swimming skills, admiring the colors of the sea that changed every day, and finding amusement in the flavor of the water that changed every time as it seeped through your gills. And if you ever got tired of the sea and the waves, you could go to the surface and look at the ground. Look at the land. At the greens, browns, and grays, at red maple leaves, the yellow wheat fields, and the many other things that you could see on the land. The Crusader said, I wanted you to feel the beauty. I wanted you to find the land, and everything that walked on the land, beautiful, and love them. She could hear the sound of running water. The forest river was dark, and the sound of the running water was indistinguishable from the sounds of the mermaids. Tiny sounds flowed from all over the world. That's why I chose. The Crusader raised her head. That's why I chose you guys, the mermaid race. Was it my own selfishness? Yes. Splash. It was selfish. The queen of the mermaids created waves with her tail. However, compared to other parents, compared to the gods of the other races, it is really pretty selfishness. The mermaid stretched out a webbed hand. She stroked her mother's blonde hair, which had been suffocating in the armor. Hesitantly, the Crusader took a breath. It was wet. Breaths near the water carried the moisture of the river. In this place, the breaths of humans and mermaids were not much different. Cool droplets of water, resembling the moon, dripped down her hair. I am very happy that you are our mother. Then. The 42nd floor quest is currently underway. Chapter 266. Family Discussion 3. equals 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 equals. I'm sorry. Slowly. The heretic questioner kneeled. It was my mistake, everyone. Hup, The members of the snail race, who were watching from a distance, sucked in breaths. Regardless of the truth that was revealed, the heretic questioner was the god whom they had worshipped for thousands of years. He was the transcendental being who had taken care of them from the beginning, the father who had given the snail race the taste of glory and honor. This godly being was not kneeling before them. I am aware that I'm by no means a normal person. I think I'm normal, but for other people, especially if we're not talking about the Death King, I'm probably not. If that is the case, then the term you used before, psycho, might be more suitable. Why? On behalf of the entire snail race, Simslem opened her mouth. Why a psycho? It's not that rare a story. When I was 3 years old, I was kidnapped by the mafia. I don't know if I was taken away from my parents because they were unable to repay a debt, or if they picked up a useful child from an orphanage. I have already killed all of the people who could have told me that. I was taught how to kill people, and how to keep them alive without killing them. I was taught how to cut down steel-like people into hundreds of pieces and make them my subordinates, and how to charm people. I picked up the process of making an organization collapse from the inside and the process of destroying it from the outside. I am a person who only knows these things. I can't help it. The heretic questioner sighed. Then, his expression brightened as he looked at Simslam. I didn't think I should teach you all things like that. Why? Well, those are the things I do best, and am the best at. Nevertheless, I didn't want you all to live like me. It would be rather difficult if there were too many people like me in the tower. For me, one me is enough. The heretic questioner smiled brightly. Of course, nevertheless, I couldn't not teach you anything. Everyone. This world is a formidable place. It's a really scary place. If you just stay in one place, then maybe someday, you will get kidnapped too. I had to raise you to be strong. The heretic questioner had used all of his knowledge to cultivate the snail race's civilization. There is no such thing in the world as someone who can be completely trusted. If there was, it would be just one. It would be a miracle that you could only encounter once in your life, and it would depend solely on your luck. So look down on them. Look down on others, and control them before they betray you. That's why he captured all the other races and made them slaves. He locked the slaves, divided and isolated, in hundreds of caves with watchtowers watching over them to prevent them from betraying them. Then, you would have nothing to be afraid of in this world. Because I am a psycho. I'm sorry, your father, is a psycho. There was a dark silence in the forest. Simslam slowly raised her head to look at the heretic questioner. Father Kukla. Yes. Although you're a psycho. Nevertheless, you tried to teach us the most moderate things, the most common sense things, and the most valuable things in your head. That's right. Father wanted to make the best house for us, even if it was a house with poor housekeeping, board walls, hammocks for roofing, unable to keep out the cold wind and rain, and seemed like it would collapse easily. Right? Right. If that's the case, then fine. Simslam stretched out her tentacle. Then she wrapped it around the hilt of the great sword stuck in the ground. You tried to teach us your best. You hid your worst from us and never asked us to understand. You just. Then me. I hope you all can become better people than me. Did your best to take care of us. For me, a father like that, no matter how many shortcomings he might have, I don't want to curse him and ask why he gave birth to us, or why he raised us. Chuck. Simslam pulled the great sword out of the ground and rested it on her shoulder, on her shell. I'm glad you are my father. Maybe. Simslam smiled. Perbub, the first member of the snail race to reign as the chairman of the Fire River Council and had done so for several decades, who was always expressionless and rarely smiled or laughed, raised her lips and smiled brightly. I might be a little happy right now. For telling me, sorry. Thank you. Then. Thank you so much. Father. Quest progress. Beginning the snail race's vote. Option 1. I liked receiving your guidance. Option 2. I hated receiving your guidance. SHRK. Fireflies began to dance around the forest. No, if you were to look closely, they weren't fireflies. Snails bent at the roots of the palm trees. Snails stuck to wooden pillars. Snails spread out along the treetops. Snails hiding in the shadowed places in the forest. They were all listening to the conversation between Simslam and the heretic questioner. Vote counting in progress. A bluish light emanated from the body of every single snail. These lights then separated from their bodies and floated into the air. From a distance, they looked like fireflies. Hundreds. Thousands. Tens of thousands. Hundreds of thousands of fireflies swirled through the forest, circling around the palm trees before rising into the darkened sky. Countless fireflies glittered, and it felt like they were floating in the middle of the Milky Way, not in a forest. Vote counting completed. A voice rang out in the Milky Way forest. Like the small peal of a bell. Option 2 number of votes, 22.5%. Option 1 number of votes, 77.5%. Please note that option 1 received more than half of the votes. The heretic questioner gazed absent-mindedly at the night sky. In the dark sky, the Milky Way swirled blue and green. I'm glad you are my father. Perhaps the word Simslam just said stole everything from him. That was something I could find out at any time after living with the heretic questioner. Stage clear. The 40th floor stage has been cleared. That's right. Money is best. The elves shrugged. Beside her, many elves enthusiastically expressed their agreement, saying things like, that's right, life without money is awful, if we don't have money we don't have face. If the elves before my regression were fanatics of the Flame Emperor, the elves of this life were fanatics of Mammonism. I was starting to have doubts about the elf race itself. Mother's words are so profound that we cannot refute them. In all honesty, we just asked because we were curious. What you were thinking, why you raised us elves into Scrooges who only care about money. I'm relieved since it seems I could satisfy your curiosity in 10 minutes. The Count giggled. If you knew how much it costs to talk to me, your filial piety will naturally emerge. After all, for a merchant, every second and every minute are precious. Well, considering that I've been watching you as if raising my own children, let's call it a parent discount service. A discount service is good. We gratefully accept it. The elves bowed their heads gracefully. Then, since we are receiving a service, I'd like to ask one more question. I don't know who you got it from, but you're pretty frugal. Well, ask. Why are you still persistently making money? The Count blinked. The elf too blinked. What do you mean? Didn't Mother say that money makes it easy to do many things? You can learn music if you want to. Or even do something else if you want to. So that we can feel happy when contemplating our lives. We completely agree. But how long do you intend to earn it? The elf tilted his head. Mother seems to have quite a bit of wealth already. Can't you do what you want to do, have what you want to have, and contemplate what you want to contemplate? Don't you think you can already have any life you want without needing to? Why earn more? The elves opened their mouths. What would you do? What do you want to do? What would you contemplate? Why? The forest was dark. So the whispers of the elves were like the sounds of the trees, branches, and leaves in the forest. What are you doing? What do you really want to do? What are you contemplating? Now? The Count squeezed her fan. Creak. As the fan closed, the Count's expression was revealed. The hunter, who was ranked 5th in the tower, stared straight ahead expressionlessly. Her anger had been revealed for too long and too frequently, so all that was left were dregs. Trash. This anger, which was only dregs, let off a bad smell. To change this world. After being filtered by the air, it was refined into a sentence. In this world, there is too much trash. Even after being filtered by the air, the voice was too disturbing for the elves to handle. Aura fluttered above the Count's shoulders. Even the Count, who originally had trouble using aura, had grown somewhat accustomed to it after going through the previous stages. With the aura that she was now accustomed to, the Count showed the color of her heart. Listen. There is one truth that I learned from being born in a trash mountain, growing up in a trash village, and moving to a trash city. It's a really unique realization, and because of that realization, I regard being born in a trash can as luck. What is it? Trash that washed up from the sea, trash that fell from the sky, trash buried in the ground, and trash that rolled in, are all trash that are less dirty than humans. The Count laughed strangely. It was a scoff. Nevertheless, I have never seen a cleaning company that specialized in cleaning humans. So I thought. Since this market is such a blue ocean, why not take the lead first? I will clean up all the trashy humans with money. Folding her arms, the Count smiled. Of course, I don't think all humans are trash. Not at all. If anything, it's contradictory. Certainly, there are many people who shine more beautifully than starlight. Although the distance between stars is very large, making it difficult to meet such beautiful people, it's just hard. Because if looked at from a distance, there are countless stars decorating the night sky. Perhaps she was thinking about someone. As if in a good mood, the corners of the Count's lips curled upwards. A cleaner like me is needed to take care of them. How do you mean? An elf asked. Do you want to use money to save those that are shining? Do you want to use money to get rid of the bad guys? How? The Count let out a laugh at the elf's questions. Is that necessary? It was a hearty laugh. There's no need to be a hero. There's no need to wear a bat cape and fly along the border of legal and illegal, spin a spider web between crimes to save poor victims, or hold up a large shield to block every attack, not at all. The Count's voice was firm. Just spend money. And simple. Just enable them to make money. The establishment of a proper economy. Good companies and bad companies. Good organizations and bad organizations. Good business and bad business. Good humans and bad humans. Right. There are many people who have trouble telling them apart. Those who wonder when and how the hell they can see human nature. Most of those who harbor such curiosity will artificially create environments or say things that would only be possible to encounter in extreme situations, but that's complete nonsense. All right, listen carefully. And praise for the undistorted cycle. Let me tell you about human nature. Bad money drove out good money. It's not something you can finally see when you have nothing, it is only when you have everything. Perhaps. The one who trusted people more than anyone else. If I sprinkle money, the good-natured people would reveal their good nature, and the trash would give off their stench. Nevertheless, I wouldn't change what I do. Spending money. Making money. Fattening them and making their meat fragrant. Until they begin to rot on their own, and commit crimes on their own, I will invest in them with my own money. Might be the smiling woman sitting on a rock in the middle of the forest. And if any human or company turns out to be rotten pieces of trash, well. Suddenly, a thought occurred to me. The heroes I sponsored with a lot of money will take care of them on their own. So for that reason, I am, as you said, persistently making money. Well, occasionally, there are some scenarios in life that cannot be avoided, which might call for some law evasion. The Sangrean master grinned. That's the reason why I make money. Without realizing it, the elves were staring blankly at the Count. Their gazes were a little more dazed than when they regarded and worshipped the Count as a god. From the beginning, the elves had not been very enthusiastic about religion. Rather than being faithful to God herself, they were faithful to God's command to make money. Because of that, among the various races, the elves could be considered the most religious. And, however, that's also why I raised you. Today was different. There was something that was undoubtedly like faith seeping into the eyes of the elves who were looking up at the Count at that moment. Adoration for the one above them. Respect for the one who had walked further than them. Reverence for the one who could point them further. You all are much more capable than the merchants working in my tower. Naturally. They just live their lives and make money. You guys live your lives by making money. Understand? You all were merchants from birth. I can't wait for those like you to come to my tower. Honestly. I've been anxiously awaiting it. The Count stood up. The elves flinched. Regardless of that, the Count got down from her perch and walked towards the elves surrounding her. Those who really know how to make money. One person. Those who can see the flow of capital and commodity. Another person. Every time the Count stepped in front of an elf, she raised her fan and gently lifted that elf's chin with the tip. Then she made eye contact with that elf in front of her. As if seduced by the Count's eyes, those elves never avoided her gaze. Those who find pleasure in making money, but at the same time find other pleasures. Those who can contemplate what the money is for. Those who find that contemplation pleasurable. In short. One by one, the Count raised the chins of dozens, looked into the eyes of hundreds, and whispered in the ears of tens of thousands. Those like me. The forest was dark. So the whispers of the Count were like the sounds of the trees, branches, and leaves in the forest. My children. The Count spoke. Follow me. The elf's breathing slowed. This continent is small. It is just a corner of a room in the universe. Even if you are familiar with the logistics of the corner of the room, and monopolize the things in it, what is the point? Follow me. Follow, climb the tower, seize every stream of money flowing through all creation, tear apart and trample the wealth piled up in the universe, so that everything from an ounce of gold to a handful of wire that was thrown into the trash can, may flow unblocked. I need you. Already, the gazes of the elves were blurred. I will love you. The breaths of the elves were hotter than their body temperatures. I am the head of all merchants. I am the master of the Sangrean. Be my children and join me in letting all the trash in the world be swept away by waves. Absent-mindedly, the elves looked at the woman who was once their god. And was now their mother. Follow me. It didn't take long for the lips of the elves to part. Yes. In the dark forest. The trees, branches, and leaves whispered. Yes. Mother. Quest progress. Beginning the elf race's vote. Vote counting completed. The Count smiled as brightly as the moon. Option 2 number of votes, 11.6%. Option 1 number of votes, 88.4%. Please note that option 1 received more than half of the votes. Chuck. As she unfolded her fan and covered the lower half of her face once again, the moon within her smile was split in half. Thank you everyone. The count concealed the slanted half-moon smile on her lips. With me, let's flush the toilet of the world. Then. Stage clear. The 41st floor stage has been cleared.